I worked 7 5-hour weeks for our house while my girlfriend blew her savings on spa days. After she publicly called me lazy, I bought the house. Just for me. I, 28 male, have been with my girlfriend, let's call her Chloe, 27 female, for exactly 4 years. We've lived together for the last 2.5 years in a decent 2-bedroom apartment. Right from the start of our cohabitation, we had an arrangement where I paid 60% of the rent and utilities because I make a higher salary. That arrangement was actually her idea, by the way. She called it a proportional contribution, and honestly, I agreed with the logic. It made sense at the time, and I wanted us to build a life together without her feeling financially strained. About 18 months ago, we started talking very seriously about taking the next big step, buying a house. She was incredibly excited, sending me Zillow listings every night. I was just as excited. We sat down at our kitchen table, opened a spreadsheet, and made a concrete plan. The goal was to save aggressively for 2 solid years. We were aiming for a $50,000 down payment on a starter home in the $310,000 to $330,000 range. We agreed we would each contribute what we could, track our savings in separate accounts so we could visibly see our progress, but ultimately work toward the exact same goal. Because of our income disparity, her target was to save $20,000. My target was $30,000. Here is exactly where things started going completely sideways. I took our plan to heart and took on extra work immediately. My regular job is in logistics management at a major distribution center. It pays a decent salary and has solid health benefits, but it's not exactly making it rain. To hit my $30,000 target within the 2-year timeframe, I started picking up overtime whenever and wherever it was available. I covered for people who went on vacation. I took grueling weekend shifts during our peak holiday seasons. I volunteered for the early morning receiving shifts that nobody else wanted. For the last 8 months especially, I have been averaging 70 to 75-hour work weeks, sometimes even more when supply chain bottlenecks hit. I was tired. Not just need a cup of coffee tired, but bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. I developed chronic lower back pain from standing on concrete warehouse floors for 14 hours a day. I missed my own sister's wedding rehearsal dinner because of a mandatory overtime shift. I skipped my best friend's 30th birthday weekend trip. But every time my alarm went off at 4 a.m., I kept telling myself it was temporary. We were building something real. A foundation. Our future. My girlfriend, meanwhile, was supposed to be saving aggressively too. And technically, she was putting money away. But her definition of saving aggressively and mine turned out to be existing in 2 entirely different universes. She would put money into her savings account on payday, sure. But then she would constantly pull from it for emergencies that were absolutely not emergencies. There was a 3-day music festival she simply couldn't miss because all her college friends were going, and she needed VIP tickets for her mental health. There was a brand new $250 designer winter coat because her perfectly fine one from last year was suddenly dated and out of cycle. There was a wellness spa weekend for her sister's birthday that somehow ended up costing her $450. Every single time I gently brought it up, she would wave me off and say she'd just make it up the next month by cutting back on groceries or coffee. She never did. I didn't say anything forceful for a long time. Partly because I was physically too exhausted to initiate a fight, and partly because I figured she would eventually get it together. She's an adult. She knows what the goal is. She was the one who wanted the house so badly. Then, about 3 weeks ago, everything shattered. I came home on a Saturday evening after a brutal 14-hour shift. I had been on my feet all day dealing with a massive inventory crisis and a broken forklift. Every muscle in my body ached. I walked through the front door, dropped my heavy keys on the console table, and found Chloe lounging on the couch. She had a glowing green face mask on, a glass of wine in her hand, and was binge-watching a true crime documentary on Netflix. "Hey," I said, my voice hoarse. "Incredibly long day." She barely even looked up from the screen. "There's leftover Thai food in the fridge." I didn't argue. I went to the kitchen, heated up the cold noodles in the microwave, and walked back into the living room. I sat down heavily on the armchair next to the couch. She finally paused her show and looked over at me. "You look rough," she said. It wasn't said with concern or empathy. It was purely observational, like she was commenting on the weather. "I feel rough," I admitted, rubbing my face. "But it's fine. Another few months of this grind and we'll finally have enough for the deposit." She shifted uncomfortably on the couch and nodded slowly. "Yeah, about that. I was actually looking at the numbers yesterday and I think we should probably push the timeline back a bit." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. "Push it back? Why? We're almost at the finish line." "I know, but I just haven't been able to save as much as I originally planned. You know how it is. Things came up. Life is expensive right now. Life." I took a very deep, very slow breath, trying to keep my heart rate down. "Okay. Exactly how much do you have saved right now?" She hesitated, picking at her fingernails. "Like, 12,000. You. 12,000? I stared at her, completely stunned. 18 months of supposed aggressive saving, and she had $12,000. I had been literally killing my body for 8 months, working double shifts, and I had already hit my $30,000 target 3 weeks ahead of schedule. She was $8,000 short of her much smaller goal. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice, I just looked at her and calmly asked, "Okay, so what is your plan to make up that massive difference?" "Well," she started, looking slightly annoyed that I was pressing the issue. "I was thinking maybe you could just cover the gap, just temporarily. I'll pay you back once we're settled in the house and I'm not paying rent to a landlord anymore." That is the exact moment something inside my brain completely shifted. The tone of her voice. She wasn't asking me for a massive favor. She was assuming. She was expecting me to just magically produce another $8,000 to cover the money she blew on concerts and spa days, while I was destroying my physical health. "Let me think about it," I said quietly. I put my half-eaten food in the trash and went to bed at 8 p.m. I couldn't sleep a wink, but I desperately needed to not breathe the same air as her. The next day was Sunday. I dragged myself out of bed at 5 a.m. and worked yet another overtime shift. When I finally got home around 3 p.m., the apartment was empty. She was out with her friends. I didn't think much of it, just thankful for the quiet, until my phone buzzed on the coffee table with a notification from Instagram. Chloe had posted a photo. It was a perfectly filtered, aesthetic shot of 2 mimosas and avocado toast at a high-end downtown brunch spot. The caption read, "When your boyfriend doesn't even try anymore. Self-care Sunday with the girls because someone has to prioritize my happiness since he won't." I sat in my dirty work boots and stared at my phone screen for probably 10 minutes straight. By the time I saw it, the post already had over 400 likes and 60 comments. All of them were from her college friends, our mutual acquaintances, and her coworkers. They were sending heart emojis. They were commenting things like, "You deserve a king, babe," and, "Drop the dead weight, queen," and, "If he wanted to, he would." I had worked 75-hour weeks for 8 straight months. I had missed holidays with my own parents. I had skipped my best friend's milestone birthday. I had developed a permanent knot in my lower back. All so we could have a house, our house. And she sat at a $50 a head brunch, spending more of the money she was supposed to be saving, and publicly broadcasted to hundreds of people that I didn't try anymore. Because I was too physically exhausted to take her to a fancy breakfast. I didn't comment on the post. I didn't text her angrily. I didn't say a single word. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking portal. I looked at the $30,000 sitting in my high-yield savings account. I thought about the sweat, the missed sleep, the cold mornings, and the absolute sacrifice it took to get that number on the screen. Then, I closed the laptop and made 3 very important phone calls. First, I called my buddy Dave, who works as a senior mortgage broker. I asked him, purely hypothetically, what kind of house I could afford entirely on my own. He ran some quick numbers through his system. With my excellent credit score, 0 debt, and my inflated income from all the overtime, he told me I could easily qualify for around $260,000 with my $30,000 down payment. It wouldn't be the big, modern house we had been planning on, but it would be a house. My house. Second, I called the real estate agent Chloe and I had been casually in contact with during our joint search. I told her the situation had changed and I was now exclusively looking solo. I gave her my new budget. She said she actually had a few older properties in my price range and could show them to me during my lunch breaks that week. Third, I transferred my entire $30,000 into a completely separate, brand new account at a different bank. Untouchable. Invisible. Mine. By Wednesday, I walked through a small, older 3-bedroom craftsman-style house. It needed cosmetic work. The paint was hideous, the carpets were old but the bones were incredibly solid, the roof was new, and it had a great backyard. I put an offer in that afternoon. By Friday morning, my offer was officially accepted. I didn't breathe a word of this to Chloe. She came home Friday night in a fantastic mood, dropping her bags and launching into a long, dramatic story about some petty gossip at her office. I sat on the couch, listened, nodded at the appropriate times, and waited patiently for her to completely run out of steam. "Hey," I said quietly when she finally finished talking. "I actually need to tell you something." "What's up?" she asked, kicking off her shoes. "I put an offer on a house this week. It was accepted this morning." Her face did this bizarre, rapid-fire morphing thing. First absolute confusion, then massive excitement, then confusion again. "Wait, what? Are you serious? We weren't supposed to actually start touring places until next month. Did you find something amazing off-market? Oh my god, let me see the Zillow listing right now." She reached for her phone. "It's not for us," I said, my voice dead calm. "It's for me. I am buying it alone." The silence that instantly filled the apartment was so heavy it was almost physical. You could have heard a pin drop on the carpet. "What do you mean, alone?" she whispered, her smile completely vanishing. "I mean exactly that. I am buying a house with my money, The money I saved by working myself into the ground. You are not on the mortgage application. You will not be on the deed. She actually laughed. A sharp, nervous sound. Okay, very funny. You got me. Seriously, show me the house. I am not joking, Chloe. After your little Instagram post on Sunday, I realized we have fundamentally different definitions of what trying looks like in a relationship. So, I decided to just try for myself instead. All the blood drained from her face, leaving her pale, before a dark red flush crept up her neck. My Instagram post? Are you kidding me? That was just venting. Literally everyone vents online. You're overreacting. You told 400 people that I don't try anymore. You did this while I was recovering from working 75-hour weeks for 8 months straight to buy you a house. You did this while you spent your portion of our down payment on spa weekends, designer coats, and VIP concert tickets. I cannot believe you are making this about money, she yelled, her voice echoing in the small room. We are supposed to be partners. You're supposed to support me. Partners contribute equally, or at the very least, they try to. You contributed $12,000 in a public, humiliating accusation that I am a lazy boyfriend. I contributed $30,000 in chronic physical exhaustion. That is not a partnership. That is parasitism. She started crying. Hard, ugly, hyperventilating tears. You can't just do this. We had a life plan. You can't just unilaterally change the entire plan without even talking to me. You changed the plan the second you decided that saving for our future was optional. I replied, standing up. I am just responding logically to the situation you created. The lease for this apartment is in both of our names. It renews in exactly 4 months. I will continue to cover my 60% portion until the lease ends. But after that, you will need to figure out your own living situation. Because I am moving into my house. She grabbed her phone off the counter, screamed that I was a psychopathic narcissist, and stormed into the bedroom, violently slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. The next few days were ice cold. She barely spoke to me, only emerging from the bedroom to make loud, pointed comments into the air about how some people abandon the ones they love when things get mildly difficult. Then, about a week later, she actually tried to buy a house on her own to prove a point. I only know this because the mortgage broker she went to a different agency, not my buddy Dave, is apparently married to someone who works in my logistics office. Word gets around fast. She confidently applied for a mortgage using her $12,000 down payment and her base income from her admin job. She got absolutely laughed out of the room. She was declined instantly. Not only was her down payment completely insufficient for the loan amount she was demanding, but her debt-to-income ratio was completely destroyed because of her high car payment and the massive credit card debt she had secretly racked up funding her aesthetic lifestyle. The bank explicitly told her she needed either triple the down payment or a wealthy cosigner. She obviously had neither. Eat it. Just to answer a few common questions from the comments. No, we did not have a joint bank account. Thank God. We kept our finances strictly separate and just updated each other on our totals. And yes, my name is the primary on the current apartment lease, but she is legally listed as a co-tenant, which is why I gave her the 4-month notice instead of just kicking her out immediately. Update 1, 2 weeks later. Things have escalated in ways I completely expected, and in ways I absolutely did not. First, the expected stuff. Chloe is furious. Like, genuinely, terrifyingly seething. She has been alternating between giving me the silent treatment and initiating explosive, crying arguments in the kitchen. The arguments all follow the exact same delusional pattern. I betrayed her, I sabotaged our shared future, and I am financially abusive for not sharing my hard-earned savings with her. That last accusation really got under my skin. Financially abusive? I looked her dead in the eye during one of these screaming matches and said, I worked 75-hour weeks, saved every single penny I made. And I'm the abusive one because I won't hand over 30 grand to a person who publicly mocked my exhaustion to her friends? I told her plainly, I am not stopping you from buying a house, Chloe. I'm just not buying 1 times for times you. She didn't have a single coherent response to that. She just threw a couch pillow at my head and locked herself in the bathroom. Second, the unexpected stuff. Her family got heavily involved. Her mother actually called me on my cell phone. Not a text, a direct phone call. Old school. I heard exactly what is happening. Her mother snapped the second I answered. No hello, no greeting. Okay, I said calmly. You are really going to leave my daughter homeless on the street over a silly little social media post? Are you really that fragile? I am not leaving her homeless, ma'am. We have a secure apartment with 4 months left on a paid lease. She has plenty of time to figure out her next steps, exactly the same as any functioning adult. She has been counting on this house for 2 years. You know that. Her mother yelled. No, I corrected her. She has been counting on times my money times for 2 years. There is a massive difference. Her mom went completely quiet for a few seconds. Then she lowered her voice and hissed, You've always thought you were so much better than her, haven't you? I actually almost laughed out loud. No, ma'am, I thought we were equals. She is the one who posted publicly that I wasn't enough for her. I am simply taking her at her word. I hung up the phone and blocked her number. Her father, weirdly enough, has stayed entirely out of the crossfire. From what I've gathered through the grapevine, he actually thinks Chloe was dead wrong for the Instagram post, but he also thinks I am overreacting by buying the house secretly. Classic fence sitter. At least he isn't actively attacking me. Her friends, however, have been an absolute nightmare. One of them, her best friend since college named Sarah, sent me a massive, unhinged DM on Instagram. It was literally a bullet-pointed list of why I was a toxic, narcissistic partner. Highlights included: not supporting Chloe's emotional needs during a stressful economic climate, prioritizing capitalist work culture over the emotional health of the relationship, weaponizing your financial stability as a form of patriarchal control. I screenshotted the ridiculous message, sent it to my buddy Dave with the caption, "I didn't know working overtime and saving money was a patriarchal weapon," and then blocked Sarah. Dave sent back a skull emoji and said I should get that printed on a coffee mug for my new house. Speaking of the house, the closing is officially scheduled for next month. The professional inspection came back mostly clean. There was some minor electrical stuff in the basement and a wonky water heater, but the seller eagerly agreed to credit me $3,000 at closing to fix it. I have already started drawing up floor plans for what I'm going to do with each room. The spare bedroom with the big window is going to be my dedicated home office. The unfinished basement has incredible potential for a woodworking shop. It's small, it's older, but it is entirely mine. Meanwhile, Chloe, I guess I should officially start calling her my ex-girlfriend at this point, even though we haven't formally sat down and said the words "we are broken up" has been frantically scrambling. She asked her parents for a massive loan to supplement her down payment so she could try the bank again. They flat out said no. Apparently, they are already financially bailing out her older brother with some crippling gambling debt and literally cannot stretch their finances any further. She then asked her younger sister, who is still aggressively paying off her nursing school student loans. Her sister literally laughed in her face. Then, 2 nights ago, Chloe came to me with a proposal. She actually sat me down at the kitchen table with this whole corporate presentation vibe. Seriously, she had a legal pad with notes written on it. "Okay," she started, using her best professional voice. "I know things have been incredibly tense between us, but I have an idea that could genuinely work for both of us. A compromise." I crossed my arms. "I'm listening. What if I move into your new house with you? Not as an owner. I know you want the deed in your name, just as a tenant. I will pay you rent, fair market rate of course, and we can use the time to see if we can rebuild our relationship in a new environment. It's not ideal for me, but it's highly practical for both of us." I stared at her, genuinely trying to comprehend the sheer audacity. "You want to move into the house I bought?" "The house I bought with the money I saved while you were broadcasting to the entire internet about how I don't try hard enough? I already said I was sorry about that stupid post." She deflected quickly. "When?" I asked, leaning forward. She blinked, taken aback. "What? When exactly did you apologize?" Because I have a pretty good memory, and I absolutely do not remember hearing the words "I am sorry" leave your mouth. She opened her mouth, closed it, and opened it again like a fish. I thought it was implied. I deleted the post, didn't I? An apology isn't implied, Chloe. And no, you are absolutely not moving into my house. Under any circumstances. That house is mine. It is the one single good thing to come out of this entire miserable mess, and I am not going to let you infiltrate it and turn it into another situation where I do all the heavy lifting and you complain about the results. She dramatically threw her legal pad onto the table, scattering her pens. "You are being so unbelievably petty about this. It was one single post." "It wasn't just a post." I corrected her, keeping my voice terrifyingly calm. "It was a post that showed me exactly how you view our entire relationship. You see me as a utility. Someone who should be eternally grateful you're gracing him with your presence. Someone who needs to constantly try harder to deserve you. I spent 8 months trying as hard as I physically, biologically could. I destroyed my back for you. And your response was to mock me to everyone you know. That's not a mistake. That is a revelation of who you actually are." She didn't cry this time. Her face just went completely stone cold. "Fine. I will find my own place. But good luck finding someone else who puts up with your boring, workaholic nonsense. I would honestly rather be alone than be with someone who resents me for wanting to enjoy my life." She slept on the lumpy living room couch that night. It was the first time since we moved in together that we didn't share a bed. UP date 2, 3 weeks later. Things have finally reached a breaking point, and honestly, as exhausting as it has been, I am profoundly relieved that it is almost over. First off, I officially closed on the house. I signed a mountain of paperwork, got the shiny new keys, drove straight over, and walked through my completely empty living room. I just stood there in the silence for about 20 minutes, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. It is real. It is mine. Nobody can take it from me. The first night, I slept on a cheap inflatable air mattress on the floor because I hadn't moved any of my actual furniture yet. I didn't care at all. It was the deepest, most peaceful sleep I have had in over a year. Second, my now officially ex-girlfriend has been on an absolute crusade to make sure everyone in our city knows her wildly distorted version of events. She took to Instagram again. This time, she posted a massive, multi-paragraph essay about surviving financial abuse in modern relationships and how toxic partners use money as a weapon to control and isolate independent women. She didn't use my name, but anyone who knows us knows exactly who she was talking about. The comments were a bit more split this time around. Her closest echo chamber friends rallied with the usual supportive garbage, but I noticed a lot of our mutual acquaintances staying completely quiet. One of my coworkers who unfortunately still follows her sent me a screenshot with the caption, "Is she clinically insane? You literally work yourself half to death every week." I didn't respond to the post publicly. I didn't jump into her comments to defend myself. The people who actually matter in my life know the truth. The people who don't matter can believe whatever fictional narrative they want. But here is the thing that actually shocked me. Her boss saw the posts. My ex works at a mid-size corporate marketing firm. It is a highly professional environment that deals with very conservative corporate clients. Her boss, let's call her Karen, apparently follows Chloe on Instagram. It was probably some forced team-building HR initiative that happened years ago. But when you post publicly, repeatedly, about financial abuse and toxic relationships with enough identifying details that your coworkers can easily figure out who you're talking about, it tends to raise massive red flags in a corporate setting. Karen called Chloe into a private closed-door meeting to check in on her well-being. Standard HR protocol when an employee seems unstable online. Chloe, completely misreading the room and thinking this was a sympathy play, unloaded the entire dramatic story to her boss. She talked about how her boyfriend had cruelly abandoned her, how she was struggling financially, and how stressed and traumatized she was by my betrayal. Karen listened politely, took notes, and then gently mentioned that the company had a very robust employee assistance program if Chloe needed professional counseling or financial guidance. Very professional, very supportive on the surface. And then, according to a mutual friend who works in the accounting department at that same company, Karen quietly started reassigning all of Chloe's client-facing responsibilities to other team members. It wasn't officially documented as a demotion, but it was absolutely a massive step back in her career. The official corporate reason given was reducing her workload to support her during a difficult personal transition. The real reason, which everyone in the office immediately understood, was that no marketing firm wants an employee who is publicly airing messy, vindictive personal drama to be the polished face of their multi-million-dollar brand partnerships. She is still employed, she is still getting her base salary, but she has been completely sidelined from all the high commission accounts, and she knows exactly why. I didn't plan for any of that to happen. I didn't call her boss. I didn't sabotage her. It is just what naturally happens when you weaponize your social media to ruin someone's reputation and conveniently forget that your professional life and your personal life are not perfectly sealed boxes. Third, the apartment situation has finally concluded. We officially had the final, undeniable breakup conversation about a week ago. She swallowed her pride and asked me one last time if I was really, truly serious about not letting her move into the spare room of my house. I said yes, I am absolutely serious. She then asked if I would at least give her $2,000 to help cover the security deposit for a new apartment since she was blindsided by this. I said absolutely not. She screamed that I was a heartless monster. I told her I called it having boundaries. She moved out completely last week. She managed to find a cramped one-bedroom apartment that she could barely afford on her own. It is significantly smaller than what she wanted, it is in a much less convenient location with terrible parking, and she actually had to resort to getting a roommate off the internet to make the monthly numbers work. She is absolutely furious about the entire reality of her situation. This is entirely your fault. She spat at me while she was throwing her clothes into garbage bags. If you had just stuck to the original plan and not been so selfish, we would be moving into a beautiful house together right now. If you had stuck to the original savings plan and not broadcasted to the world that I don't try, we would be in a house together right now, I shot back. But you didn't. So here we are, actions have consequences. I cannot believe I wasted 4 years of my youth on you. She cried. I cannot believe I spent 8 months working 75-hour weeks destroying my spine for someone who thought I wasn't trying, I replied evenly. She didn't have anything to say to that. She just zipped up her bag and walked out. Fourth, her mortgage situation somehow got even worse. Before she signed the lease on the crappy apartment, she desperately tried 2 more independent lenders after the first bank rejected her. Both of them declined her application for the exact same reasons. The final loan officer actually sat her down and told her that if she could aggressively save for another 12 to 18 months, and completely pay down her revolving credit card debt, she would be in a much better shape to qualify for a tiny starter condo. 18 months of aggressive saving. Exactly what we were supposed to do together. Except now, she has to do it entirely alone, from a much more expensive apartment, while splitting rent with a stranger, and without my inflated income to act as a safety net for her spending habits. I heard through the grapevine that she completely broke down sobbing in her car when the last lender handed her the rejection paperwork. A small, weak part of me felt bad when I heard that. The part of me that remembered falling in love with her 4 years ago, making grand plans together, and genuinely believing we were building a beautiful life. But then I remember the Instagram post. I remember the 400 likes, the 60 comments, the chorus of, "You deserve a king" from people who had absolutely no idea how hard I was bleeding to give her the life she demanded. The sympathy faded incredibly fast after that. I am writing this final update from my new house. My house. It still feels surreal to type those words. The furniture is mostly set up now. I went a little budget on everything for now. I bought a second-hand couch off Facebook Marketplace, a basic metal bed frame from Amazon, and literally everything in my kitchen is from IKEA. But it is mine. I picked every single piece out myself. I didn't have to compromise on the aesthetic, and I didn't have to ask permission to buy a blue rug instead of a gray one. The spare bedroom is officially my home office. I talked to my boss at the logistics company, and I've already started working from home 2 days a week doing administrative routing, which has done absolute wonders for my chronic back pain and my general sanity. The 75-hour weeks are completely over. I am back to my normal 40-hour schedule, only picking up occasional overtime when I actually want a little extra disposable cash. My savings account took a massive hit with the down payment and closing costs, but it is rebuilding steadily. My stress levels are the lowest they have been in over 2 years. As for my ex, physical closure is a real thing. I actually helped her carry some of her heavier boxes out to her car on her final moving day. Not because I wanted to win her back, but because I am not a monster, and I wanted the physical, tangible closure of watching her pack up and leave. Watching her taillights disappear down the street was the exact closure I needed. She is living with that random roommate now. From what I've heard through our dwindling mutual friends, it is going disastrously. The roommate is apparently incredibly messy, loud, and constantly has her boyfriend over, which is deeply ironic because Chloe used to relentlessly complain about my obsessive tidiness when I would ask her to put her shoes in the closet. Her job situation has stabilized slightly, but she is still confined to the penalty box. She hasn't been given back any of the big client accounts, but she has been assigned to some internal, low-profile corporate projects. They are steady, but there are no bonuses involved. She seems to be keeping her head down professionally, which is probably the smartest thing she has done in months. She hasn't posted about me again. The last thing I saw on her Instagram before I permanently blocked her was a generic, pastel-colored motivational quote about new beginnings and leaving toxic energy behind. It got maybe 40 likes. The sympathy engagement from her friends seems to be rapidly dying down now that the drama is over. Her family has gone completely quiet, too. Her mother never reached out again after I hung up on her. Her father, however, sent me a surprising text about a week ago that just said, "I hope you're doing well, son. No hard feelings on my end. You did what you had to do." I genuinely appreciated that. I responded with a simple, "Thanks, sir. Same to you," and left it at that. One of her friends, not Sarah who sent me the toxic bullet points, but a different girl named Jessica, actually approached me to apologize. We ran into each other at a local coffee shop downtown, and she pulled me aside while I was waiting for my order. "I just wanted to say I am really sorry," Jessica said, looking incredibly uncomfortable. I totally believed her version of things at first, with the whole financial abuse narrative. But then, I heard more details about the down payment and the credit cards, and yeah. "I don't think you did anything wrong. I appreciate that," I told her, taking my coffee. "I'm not looking for apologies from anyone. I just want to move on with my life in peace." For what it's worth, Jessica added quietly, she is really struggling right now, not just financially. I think she is finally realizing exactly how much she took you for granted. I didn't know what to say to that. I still don't, honestly. A dark part of me thinks she absolutely deserves to struggle to learn a lesson. A softer part of me remembers 4 years of good memories mixed in with the bad. But the biggest part of me just doesn't care anymore. And that apathy is incredibly freeing. Here is the absolute truth about this whole ridiculous mess. I don't feel like I got some grand, cinematic revenge. I didn't set out to maliciously punish her or ruin her life. I just simply decided to stop letting her benefit from my agonizing labor while she simultaneously complained about the quality of it. The consequences that followed, the humiliating mortgage rejections, the terrible roommate situation, the corporate job setback, those weren't things I actively did to her. Those were things that happened because her entire lifestyle was built on the expectation of my endless contributions. When I removed myself and my money from the equation, her math simply stopped working. That's not revenge. That is just reality. I have been spending a lot of time thinking about what I want next. Definitely not anything romantic. I am nowhere near ready to date again. But just life-wise, I have a solid foundation now. I can build literally anything from here. Maybe I will finish that basement this winter and finally set up the woodworking shop I've always wanted. Maybe I will plant a massive garden in the backyard next spring. There is a perfect sunny spot by the fence that would be incredible for growing tomatoes and peppers. Or maybe I will just sit on my back porch after work with a cold beer and enjoy the absolute, uninterrupted quiet. Last weekend, I had Dave over for the first time. We ordered 2 massive pizzas, drank some beers, and watched the football game on my cheap TV. He looked around at the mismatched thrift store furniture, the completely bare walls, and the moving boxes I still haven't unpacked in the corner, and he smiled. "Dude, this place is absolutely perfect for you." I looked around the room, and I realized he was 100% right. It is not perfect in the curated, aesthetic Pinterest sense that Chloe always obsessed over, but it is perfect in the sense that it is mine. Every single nail, every floorboard, every drop of paint. I built this, I earned this with my own blood, sweat, and tears. Nobody can ever post on the internet about how I didn't try hard enough, because the undeniable evidence of my immense effort is literally the roof over my head. And that feeling of security is worth infinitely more than any shallow validation from strangers on Instagram. I am not perfectly happy yet. There is still a lingering sense of grief heavily mixed in with the relief. 4 years is a very long time to invest your heart into something that ultimately completely falls apart. But I am getting there, day by day. The house is so peaceful at night. Sometimes I lie awake and think about how incredibly different things could have been if she had just appreciated what we were painstakingly building together, instead of complaining about the process. But she didn't. And I cannot change the past. All I can control is what I do next. Right now, what I'm doing is sitting on my squeaky, second-hand couch in my half-empty living room, typing this massive story out for strangers on Reddit. Tomorrow, I am going to buy a hammer and hang some pictures on the walls. Maybe I'll buy a houseplant. Start making this place look like someone actually lives and thrives here. Small steps, but they are forward ones. Thanks for reading all of this. And if you are ever in a situation where someone is happily taking your massive efforts for granted while publicly complaining that you aren't doing enough, trust me when I say this. Your contributions belong solely to you. You get to decide what you build with them. Build something beautiful for yourself. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out and allows us to bring you even more awesome stories. Thank you so much for watching.